Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. My voice might be sounding a little bit funny. I've just got off an Ayurveda Alchemist business embodiment call, and we had lots of fun on that call. We're talking about crafting our irresistible offers, the soul of our business, and all those fun, exciting things. But because of the excitement, my voice is fading in and out. So I'm sorry if I sound a little bit croaky today. But in saying that, we have a really, really awesome episode lined up for you guys. And it's all about breaking free from self-doubt, shifting into confidence and trust with Nikki Morrison. So I know so many of us can relate to this topic, whether we're in our business, health, or our personal growth. We often feel those feelings of self-doubt. My guest today, the wonderful Nikki. She is a yoga teacher, a meditation guide, and coach who helps women break free from self-doubt, limiting beliefs, and old identities to step fully into their highest selves. Her own journey began with infertility struggles, identity shifts, and leaving a secure teaching career, all requiring deep trust and transformation. So welcome to the podcast, Nikki.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Very excited to have you. Now, you have been through your own personal journey of self-doubt, and I mean, we all have, right?
Definitely.
We absolutely all have, and nearly every day is one of those journeys can sometimes arise for us. But can you share the turning points in your life where self-doubt held you back the most?
Well, I think you nailed it when you said it's always there. So I don't know, if there's been one turning point, because I feel like at every level that I have got to, and the more I have got into this work of like personal development, there's always, the next level of stuff that you need to deal with. I think that back when I was trying to fall pregnant, that was my first experience with just really suffering so much self-doubt. And I think at the time I wasn't even in this work. As you mentioned, I was a primary school teacher. So I don't even think I knew that that's what was happening. I had very little self-awareness around that time. And, partly because it's such a hugely emotional time, but just anyway, I just wasn't really in this world at all. I wasn't doing yoga. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. So I think that really I was experiencing it then, but didn't really know what it was. But then as I then started to get more into the world and recognizing what, emotions and feelings are, and creating a lot more self-awareness through meditation and that sort of thing, I think I actually really started to realize that this was the same thing plaguing me all of the time. And I think that, you asked, what was the time that it really changed for me. I think really it has been very recently that time, because I think I've been suffering from it and really letting it, not really being able to shift out of it quickly. And so I think that I was letting it really lead me until very recently. I think I've discovered that I have been able to find ways out of, or recognizing it come on sooner and then finding ways out of it much more quickly. So sorry to the roundabout way, but there's not been one pivotal time where it's really, held me back the most. It feels like just this constant journey of trying to master how to get out of it.
Yeah. And it's interesting you spoke about that sort of infertility challenge. I know when we were trying for kids, I was also in my nursing career and I was a triage nurse, and I would have women come in who I would have to triage, who were off their heads, really drunk, on drugs, fully pregnant. And I'm like struggling to conceive and I'm doing all the right things. And it does sort of like, you do question like, why me? Like I'm a good person. I can bring raise really good children, and you're like, well, what's wrong with me? And then all this self-doubt, is it even going to happen for me and stuff like that. So I can resonate from that perspective, and especially you being a school teacher with, was it primary school kids, having to like nurture and support these children when you're really yearning to have children yourself. So you did mention that was sort of one of the pivotal points or catalysts for change. So how did this experience shape your personal growth and belief in yourself?
Well, yeah, it was a really hard time. And I think ultimately I was being called to do more. But of course, at the time, I didn't know that. And I think that, yeah, it was really tough to go to school. I was working in learning support at the time, but it was really tough to go to school. I was working a lot with parents, almost like in a consulting role with them and professionals about their children. So I found it really, really tough to face those situations. I think the thing that for me was that I became so just trapped by the situation that I was in that I needed to get out. So it wasn't even like everyone, because in Brisbane I lived at the time, though I had a permanent position in a school and they were sought after. And it took me a long time to finally land one. And then when I had it and I decided that like I just need change or I'm just going to go insane, I want to leave teaching, everybody was like, are you sure? Like, you don't want to let go of your permanency. But what they didn't realize was that I just needed out of that environment so desperately. So for me, it was just an absolute no-brainer that I would leave school teaching. And essentially my infertility was the thing that made me go. And we left Brisbane and we moved out to Dalby to have just like a massive change, because at that point we didn't know if we would ever have children. And so we needed something that was going to just enrich our lives and help us to look forward to the future, which was so uncertain at the time. So yeah, that was that change out of school teaching. And then I really started doing yoga to get my stress under control. I was seeing a naturopath at the time, and she told me you really need to be doing something for your emotional health during this time because you're not helping yourself. So I started doing yoga just with an app on an iPad and locked myself in the spare room, and I would go in there most mornings and most evenings and just do this little daily practice on the app. And it just slowly but surely started to shift and change so many things for me. I think firstly, my energy, this whole idea where I said before, I didn't even recognize like what self-doubt was. What yoga helped me so deeply do was just become aware of myself. Like it has this way of just making you see yourself almost from the inside out. And I was practicing quite a lot. But just being able to become friends with myself and my body again through the practice of yoga was absolutely, life-changing for me. And that was the turning point really into yoga, meditation, so many aspects of my health I started to focus on. And not that I wasn't prior to that, because, infertility makes you, like you said, question everything. Am I doing everything? Am I doing everything? But it was very surface layer for me back then. It was just like, oh, eat these things, try not to eat that, don't drink so much. It was all of those things. But I just felt it was this inside out change once I started practicing yoga.
And it kind of brings me to that. It's a good saying, but quite cliched. But it's like life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And so these challenges that we go through are stepping stones to align ourselves with our dharmic path, especially if we are a little bit more like, self-aware people. Everyone gets the nudges, but sometimes we can align and listen to them a little bit more so. And so for you, this journey sort of pushed you into alignment with your dharmic path, which is still teaching, but maybe teaching in a different way. It's not so much teaching children, it's turned into teaching yoga, and it's teaching this way of being and teaching women to overcome self-doubt. And through that path, without your teaching expertise, it may have been a little bit more harder to navigate that pathway, and you may have struggled with more self-doubt. But because you've already been in it as a teacher, like you're just transferring the type of teaching that you're doing. And so we call this in like Ayurveda as like it's on your dharmic path. It's still on your dharmic path. But a lot of women, when they make these little shifts or subtle changes, they can really struggle with that self-identity piece. And I know I did that. And I think we've got very similar stories, but mine's probably more from a health background and yours is like from a teaching background. From like moving from being a nurse in the government system, I guess. I went to uni for nursing when I was 17 years old. So I was even like 18 yet. Did that. I was graduated a full nurse by the time I was 21. And that's all I'd known and all I'd really done. And it sort of gave me a sense of purpose, even though I didn't love and enjoy it. but it gave me an identity is really what it gave me into my adulthood, because really transitioning from a 17-year-old child into adulthood was what I did. And that's all I knew. And then to shift from that was like this identity struggle of like, well, if I'm not a registered nurse, am I going to be seen seriously if I'm creating my own business and health? But I actually integrate it all. And when I started realizing that actually it's all my dharmic path is part of me, I'm so grateful that I did clinical nursing, because I know so much about like the anatomy, physiology of the body from a Western standpoint, and when people are on different medications and when they've got traumas and all the things. And I'm so grateful that I can integrate that into my business now, even like reading pathology, blood tests, all of that. But there was such an identity struggle there for such a long time when I couldn't define myself. And, you know, from yoga and Ayurvedic perspective, we look at the Ayurvedic psychology point of things, and that's more about ahamkara, speaking that ego sense of I and our identity and purpose. But how did you seamlessly sort of shift your identity from teacher to finding your way into your own sort of unique business?
Yeah, it was challenging. I think that I have identified as a teacher for my whole life. Like, I remember being about 8 years old and my dad painted me an old board. It was like the top of a table that he pulled apart, and he painted it in blackboard paint and hung it up in the garage. And I would like be in there teaching like my dolls and things like that. So from that long ago, like, I was a teacher. It was all I ever wanted to do. I loved school. I was one of those people that was very luckily the school environment suited me, and I loved primary school and I loved high school. So I identified as a teacher for a very long time. And I think when I went to do my yoga teacher training, I actually went on the journey. For the journey, I was struggling so much on a personal level with that question of like, who am I? Because if I'm not going to be a mum, then who am I? What am I? What am I here for? What's the purpose of this? Because teaching was making me by then very unhappy. And so I didn't really know, like, I just felt so incredibly lost. So I did the yoga teacher training purely because I was loving yoga so much. And I thought, I want the journey of the teacher training, because everyone said it was a real soul, you know, a soul journey, not really thinking I would get into teaching it necessarily. But then very quickly into the course, I was like, I want to teach this. And so I think I shifted into the teaching of yoga quite easily. I think that I was okay to, you know, obviously there's just that beginner nerves and all that sort of thing. But I think I felt really comfortable very quickly teaching adults yoga. I think for me, the identity part that was much harder was that, you know, going into the coaching aspect of my business. And like you decided that your being an RN actually gave you that really unique and, you know, great edge to your business. It's taken me a very long time to recognize that the yoga teacher, the meditation teacher, and the coach actually work together. I think because I taught yoga and meditation for probably about 12 years before I added coaching and started to coach one-on-one with women. I think that it was like, oh, I'm a yoga teacher and I'm a coach. And in my mind, it was quite separate. And then what I've actually come to realize is that all of those modalities, including my history as a primary teacher, and I was even a personal trainer not long after I left teaching. I did a bit of PT and group fitness stuff. All of that comes together to give me who I am and my brand, essentially. It has taken a long time. And I think that the self-doubt is always part of that. Like, what do I have to offer? Because I feel I've got to offer so much. So yeah, I think that the self-doubt has come into trying to create this beautiful blend where everything works together, where I can be coaching with a woman and I don't have to just narrow my focus. It's like, oh, well, I can share this with her and I can share this with her and I can share this with her. And so that's been a tough journey, but it's slowly the puzzle pieces are all falling into place, which feels so incredible because yeah, the doubt drips away when you start to really feel like, oh, this is working. This is who I am. And yeah, that feels really good.
I love that so much. And it's exactly what we were speaking about on our Ayurveda Alchemist call today. It's like how to create that irresistible offer, but the soul of that offer, the base of any offer you do in your business is what we call the soul of your business. And that soul is created through your unique methodology. And you only get a unique methodology by bringing in all of your experience, your life experience, all of your external skills, internal skills, and molding them together in what is your life's work? What is like so aligned with your dharma and your purpose that you just cannot wait to share that with the world? What are the things that you know from all of your vast experience that no one else in the world has ever had? What is all of those things when that's put together? It's this one unique framework that only you have to offer. And that what makes you so unique in the marketplace or the workplace that we're in, like the coaching industry, the health and wellness industry. And so it's so beautiful that you found your way back to yourself by not ignoring or saying, well, that was the past me. You know, the teacher was the past me, and myself, the nurse was the past me. Well, no, it's us right now too, because it's created who we are now, and it's created a unique methodology. And I know on the podcast, I've spoken a lot about my methodology, the higher self methodology. And I integrate the pillars of health alchemy, empowered mind paradigm, and dharmic impact to really help women step into their higher selves, whether that's through their, you know, like my health clients or my coaching clients, my business clients. And I'm writing a whole book based on my methodology because it's so grounded in my truth and my whole life experience. And I've woven all stories, even from when I was a kid, into this. It's really beautiful to see when people can, you know, do this and not separate themselves through chapters of their lives, but just see themselves as a whole right now. I love that. Self-doubt, as we've mentioned, it's something that almost everyone experiences. And if you're listening and are like, I've never experienced self-doubt, well, you're probably not listening because this is probably the podcast for you. But if it is you, I'd love to hear your story about that.
Yes, me too.
But in your work, how do you see it showing up for women, whether it's in their health, their business, or their personal life? Like, how do you see women outwardly, or I guess even inwardly, portraying self-doubt?
In different ways, but something that I think that is the same for all of them and that I can relate to as well. It's just this, it can show up like initially as like lack of confidence. That's what a lot of women will come to me and say, like, oh, I'm lacking confidence. But I think I always feel like confidence is a skill. It's a skill like any other skill that if you just practice it, it kind of comes. I think that the want to practice it, or the, taking the action to practice the confidence, the skill of confidence, that comes from a deeper place. And I feel like that's the self-doubt part. That's the deeper part. So I think that, you know, for women, it shows up a lot in indecision. They're second guessing themselves all of the time. It shows up for them maybe like in inaction. They want to be doing something, but they're not doing it and they don't know why they're not doing it. Or things like procrastination, just like, again, I want to be doing that, but I keep putting that off. Why do I put that off? And then I think those, like, because you're not doing the thing that really is aligned with your inner being, if you're being called to do something, but you're not, you know, like, even if it is in a social situation, if you're being called to do something, but you're not doing it, that just then leads to other emotions like frustration, maybe feelings of hopelessness, and even sadness, because you're actually not living out what is inside of you. So I sort of catch women when they come to me at different stages. I think for the women, the demographic of women that I tend to work with, and they're all probably in their 40s and 50s, they've been carrying it for so long and they are worn out. That's what I get when women finally reach out to me through a DM or an email. It's like, I'm ready. I'm ready. They have been carrying the burden and they don't actually know necessarily what it is. It's like me when I was teaching, not really calling it self-doubt, not knowing the ins and outs of it, but knowing that they just are not living the way that they want to be living. They don't have that freedom of just being who they are and being okay with who they are and what they're doing. So I feel like women show up with it as quite a heavy burden. And yeah, it can look different at different stages, but that is something that I noticed that, you know, is in all of them, and they have to be ready to do something about it, I think. And like I said, it's not like you never doubt yourself again. What I feel like I've done really well, especially just very recently, even in the last 12 months, is actually learn what's happening for me and learn how I'm, realize how I'm feeling, realize what thoughts are making me feel that. And then just making that decision that, okay, I'd rather feel like this. These are the thoughts I need to be thinking. This is the action I need to be taking. And even though the self-doubt is there, it's like this little thing, I just take the action anyway. And I realize that it's that inner reflection and relationship with my awareness and the bold action taking, that really helps me to keep moving forward, because I don't know that it ever goes away. I think we just get better at, well, I feel like using it almost like a superpower to get really, to really read my mind. What am I thinking? What's making me feel like this? What am I actually thinking about this event that I'm offering? I'm thinking no one will buy it. No one wants to pay that. It's too expensive. It's not going to be good enough. All of that stuff. So I really get to know myself really well. But taking the action anyway just helps me to keep moving forward and not get stuck by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Clarity definitely comes through action. And I totally agree. Like, confidence is something that can be trained, and it's something that can definitely grow with you. I know for me, like, I absolutely hated public speaking. Like, even if I was in a class, a small classroom, a small group, and I knew the answer to something and wanted to speak up, I just wouldn't, or I'd go like so super red. And it's funny because I think when your calling and your dharma is greater than your insecurities, you move through that. Because here I am with like a worldwide podcast. I mean, I teach on stages and platforms, and if you had told me that's what I would be doing, like even 15 years ago, I'd be like, hell to the no. Like, that is my worst nightmare. Now, like, yeah, I absolutely love it. And yeah, of course, I'm not confident all the time, like at all, but it's easier to show up. And I think I have more confidence and self-respect for myself that I'm not worried about what other people think as much of how I present. And I think that's where confidence comes in, because a lot of the time is sometimes it's our self-doubt, but it's also our inner dialogue saying, worried about how we're going to be perceived and being judged, and fear of that.
Yes.
And I think on what you said about like how self-confidence or self-doubt, shows up for people, it does show up very differently for people. And from like the Ayurvedic perspective, we always look at it through the lens of like the elements or the doshas. And I notice the women that I have in my clinic, if they're very vata, then they will come in with a lot of fear, instability, a lot of overthinking. And so that's why we prescribe more grounding practices. Whereas kapha is probably more like they come in with a lot more sort of depression, or they don't have motivation to move. They mask it with not having the motivation to move forward, because that self-fear and self-doubt is so crippling. Whereas I find pitta, they're quite interesting because they're usually quite driven. They're leaders. What I do tend to see with them, when they have a lot of self-doubt, they'll throw themselves into another project. So they don't have to sit there and think about it and cultivate that self-awareness like you just mentioned that you've been able to do through the process. So I think, it's really important to be able to understand that self-doubt and fear shows up so differently in people. And on that, what are some hidden ways that self-doubt manifests that people may not even realize?
Well, I think I've mentioned a couple, but I think like indecision is a big one. I find too sometimes like a bit of a heightened energy. You can think of self-doubt, like I just even said before, it's kind of like heavy, but I think self-doubt can also, come out as like that kind of, nervous sort of weird
energy.
Yeah, it's definitely, and because it's interesting you said that, because I know that from the quiz, like I am definitely Vata Pitta, like they're the two that I resonate, and I resonate with that whole idea of like being a leader, and I know I can do that stuff, but then like kind of crippled by the overthinking and all of the fears and things like that. Like I have been in my life very fear driven in so many ways. But yeah, I think, look, self-doubt can, show up as that weird kind of up energy. But I think too, guilt as well, like, because it's something I see a lot in my clients. They're holding on to guilt from things that they made a decision about, or a relationship that they had with someone so many years ago, and they're still not sure if they did the right thing. So it can be this whole idea of guilt and needing to forgive themselves as well is a process that we often work through. So yeah, it's just so depending, I think, on the situation as well. Shyness is another thing, like in social situations. Some women that I, work with that would say, oh, they're not confident in social situations. They just say, oh, I'm just really shy. But they're actually, what I think I help them get to is that they're not actually shy. It's sort of what you said. They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid to just be who they are because they don't maybe know who they are. That's a big thing for women in their 50s, I think, and 40s and 50s after having children maybe, or just even devoting to themselves, to their careers, even if they don't have kids, is they don't really know who they are once they get to that point. So they don't know who they are. And then, they're afraid to show who they are to other people, but that can look like, oh, I'm just shy. So, and it's funny, older ladies as well, like women more in their, or not necessarily even older, but if their parents have told them not to, if they've got that message from their childhood, not to talk about yourself or like to be humble, those things can show up. Like they can just say, oh, my mum used to always say like, be humble and don't brag. But actually it's just it can be self-doubt under there. They don't want to say who they are and share their celebrations and wins with the world because, what will people think? And they're kind of doubting that part of themselves. So yeah, there's a few different ways that I've seen with women that, it can kind of manifest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. We've really spoke about how self-doubt can manifest, what it can look like, and possibly even brought it to attention for some women who might not have named it or identified as having self-doubt, what that actually can look like. So now, how do we begin the process of shifting self-doubt to deep self-trust? Big question, I know.
Excuse me.
But
Yes.
how do we begin that process?
Yeah, well, for me, and I'm going to shout this from the rooftops, this is something that I used to hide behind because I doubted, like, what people would think. But now I know, and I stand true to this, is that having a meditation practice, I believe, is first and foremost one of the best ways, because meditation helps you to build a relationship with your awareness. And I teach mindfulness meditation, and I know there's many different styles, but through mindfulness meditation, you develop a relationship with your awareness. So rather than being the thought, like rather than I am not capable, I am not good enough, I am not interesting enough, I am not smart enough, all of these doubt things that we say to ourselves, you actually become, instead of I am the thought, it's like I'm aware that I'm thinking this. And it's like, I always feel like it's like this layer sitting above my mind where all the thoughts are in here, but I'm actually able to see them for what they are. So I feel like having some sort of stillness practice where you get to start to build a friendship with yourself and a relationship with your awareness is really key. It really is. Self-awareness just comes into so much in our lives. I think there's other ways to build awareness as well. Develop a relationship with your awareness, I think, just through even movement. So practices like yoga and even just exercise, like starting to create like awareness of how your body feels in any moment, and that feeling of like being breathless and like how your body moves, and then more slow practices like yoga, moving mindfully. And I think movement is a really big thing. So meditation, definitely. Movement, absolutely. I think also things like journaling as well can really help you to create greater awareness, which I think is the key for moving out of self-doubt, because you can't do something about something unless you know that it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as you recognize this is, because I think as humans, we feel more than we know what we're thinking. So it's like, for me, my first thing that I'm experiencing self-doubt about something in my life or a situation or an event I'm putting on or whatever it is, I straight away feel the feelings. It's like, oh, I feel this. And like, and that leads me straight away to, because I know that when we are in alignment with our inner being, with our higher self, we are in flow, and we are like kind of feeling all the good feelings basically. So when we're feeling negative emotion, I feel like there's a misalignment happening, and I know that straight away. So then I can ask like, okay, well, what am I thinking right now? And I can get a bit of a thought audit of everything that's making me feel that way. And then I can decide, okay, well, if this is what I want, instead of just going straight to the problem solving and like, making sure that event sells out or whatever it is, we can just sit with all of that. And that's where the inaction and indecision and all of that comes in. So once I know what I want to, what the end goal is, I can then say, what do I need to be thinking instead? I need to believe in this offer. I need to believe in this event. I need to believe people want it. I need to, all of that stuff. I can do a belief audit, write it all out. So I use my journal a lot to kind of get out what I'm thinking, what I would rather be believing. And then using that, taking the bold action, like we said, and just going for it anyway. I always think of that book that my mum was reading in the 80s, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. I don't know if you've heard of that book.
Yeah.
It was like someone way before their time back then wrote that book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And that's what I feel like I'm always doing. So I can take the bold action, and then I can, really think about what is the evidence that these new beliefs are true. Well, my last offer sold out, and I know people want this because, 3 of my clients told me just this week that this is what they need, and start to build evidence for what is true rather than just what my brain is telling me. So you can start to then learn to trust, because I think what happens is fear and anxiety can come from very simplistically, but our brain wants to be able to predict what's next. And when there's uncertainty there and it can't, it's making a prediction, it can't make a prediction. And that's where the fear kind of comes from. So I feel like when I can give myself evidence, and this is some of the NLP work I've done as well, when I can give myself evidence that these new beliefs can be true, I'm more able to kind of boldly step into the action that I need to take. And having that inner and outer relationship, taking action, but still being able to reflect and does this feel good? And what are my thoughts about this? What's my inner being kind of saying? Being intuitive. I think that outer action and the inner work really work beautifully together in being able to know that you're on the right path and you're not just taking all the action blindly in the dark. And then you're not also just sitting in meditation, getting all the wonderful inner stuff done, but doing nothing about it. So that's too passive. I feel like having both is how you start to just boldly step into self-trust, because once that situation works out or you learn your lessons, you get your feedback from it, next time it just becomes easier. I did that last time, I can do this again.
Absolutely. And we are such capable beings if we allow ourselves to be. From this Ayurvedic psychology perspective, we look at the different layers of the mind, and sort of what you're explaining is that we often react and create those fear-based decisions from that level of that ahamkara, that ego-centered base. But when we use the tools of meditation, of breath work, of journaling, we're opening up the other spheres of the mind, of the brain, and we're entering what, maybe the Buddhi mind, that higher intellect. And we don't have to overthink that part, because we just get to access that through those tools. And that can be such a strong guidance. And the Vijnana mind, that intuitive mind you're talking about, once we've opened up that higher intellect, once we've opened up the Vijnana mind, the intuitive mind, it all starts to work together and we have more discernment about what we're doing. And from that place builds confidence. And with confidence comes self-trust. So I think that to a lot of people, we always talk about doing meditation, movement, exercise, journaling. And it's oh God, how many times can a self-help teacher tell us that? I mean, yeah, cool, come up with something new. But there's a reason why these practices have been around for 5,000 plus years from the Vedic times, and why they work. And when we actually understand how our mind works, it's not just this singular entry. It's not just this thought pattern. It's those limiting self-beliefs are samskaras, we call in Ayurveda, that are ingrained in your chitta mind, which is your subconscious mind. And so there's ways of really unlocking them. There's ways of accessing different parts of your mind that you might not be doing every day. And they will help you move through self-doubt and build self-trust. And even simple rituals, we speak about a daily routine, dinacharya, and Ayurveda being so important. And that's because consistency in something, so consistency in routine builds confidence. And it builds confidence within the body on a cellular level without you even realizing it. I think that's why things like movement, yoga, meditation, dinacharya support the rewiring of self-belief.
Yeah.
And
100% agree.
Yeah. And self-awareness, which you've spoken so much about, it really is that key to change. So you've spoken a lot about journaling. Are there any specific prompts that somebody listening to today? Because, people, I think when they listen, they're yeah, journaling sounds good. And then they go to do it and they're what the hell do I write? like journal about? Like, is there a prompt that you could give someone who is listening, thinking, okay, I'm gonna give it a crack now. I understand that it's going to open another sphere of my mind and it's going to help with confidence and self-doubt.
Yeah.
What prompt would you give them?
Well, even just like what you said, like, I like the idea of journaling, but what the hell am I going to write? Like, that even is, there's even doubt in that people would say, because they're like, they don't think they've even got anything worthy to say, even to themselves, like we have so much in us, in our subconscious, unconscious mind, that we don't even know is there. And I think that journaling, one of my biggest, and I have kept a diary with the little lock and key since I was a little girl, on and off through my teenage years and 20s, but then I came back to it in my 30s very strongly, and I still do it. But I always had the little diary when I was in primary school. But I think my first tip is really just to start, because you have so much inside of you. And so what I personally like to use it for, or how I use it, is, like I mentioned before, I use it a lot for, okay, what am I thinking about this situation? And it's interesting when you get a pen and paper and you just actually allow yourself to write, you think you know what you're going to say, but this can be actually a very unconscious process where you don't actually know sometimes that you're like, oh yeah, like, and it just starts to spill out all of the stuff that isn't necessarily in your conscious mind. But I love to use it like, what am I thinking about this situation? And get all of the thoughts out. And sometimes it's quite confronting. It's like, oh my God, I really think I am not good enough. I really think that I can't do that. And it can be a lot to read. What would I rather think? This can be tricky, because when you're just locked in that self-doubt and I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough kind of frame, it can be hard to actually think, what would I rather think? Because you think, oh, that's not possible. So you have to really start to expand and open your mind. And I love to do a little bit of a, what are the new beliefs that I want to take on? So I do a lot of that in my journal. I also love to do things like using it, like to kind of future pace, like you would do a visualization. I love to use my journal for that. So you can do things like, my best day ever. So if you've got a presentation or something at work, like, you can start in the morning, okay, today it is, and it hasn't happened yet. So you're like future pacing, writing out what the day is going to look like. You can do it like writing a letter to yourself that you'll read it at the end of achieving that goal. Like if you're running a half marathon, like, dear Nikki, and, you sort of get all of the, write to yourself, that was the best race ever. You did, I did this, and you can kind of use it in that future pace kind of, situation. So that's how I tend to use my journal, really to get out of my head what I'm thinking, what I'd rather think, to create through visualization, which I do at the end of my meditation on a daily basis. I future pace a scene of whatever it is I am working towards, but then I love to use the written form of that as well in my journal. So, but I think just start, like, there's so much, it's so insightful when you get going and you get writing. And I mean, there's millions of prompts. You can Google journal prompts if you want to. Some of them are a bit dry, like I've done that before. But I always find the best thing is to just trust the process of journaling, just like meditation. You don't necessarily have to know exactly what's going to come from it, but you have to trust that it can be something that's really great for you to do.
Yeah, I love future pacing. And I think if you are suffering from self-doubt, there's usually like an aspect or a reason why you're suffering from self-doubt. So it's really good to future pace on that specific topic. And it always just makes you feel so good, because it's about, like, like you said, having that perfect day or having that success or confidently speaking up or whatever that might look like, and like creating the scene for how you want that to play out. And when you're writing that, you're feeling into that. And it's all about that energetic exchange, and we're energetic beings. So when you can start to feel that energy, your whole energy shifts into that. And that's how, like, that abundance and that manifestation process works, because you're energetically aligning yourself to how you actually want to show up in that situation. And then if you can keep that with you as you move to that situation, so read that before you're about to do the big talk in front of, your team or whatever, then you can easily step into that process. So I really love that. And a few other sort of journal prompts that I do like, if we are building self-awareness, is just to start with, how do I feel today? And just writing, like, how do I feel? And then ask yourself, how do I want to feel today? And then if you're like feeling, oh, I'm tired, or I can't really go to work, but that's how you're feeling, then you're like, how do I want to feel? I want to feel inspired. I want to feel motivated. I want to feel really joyful about my job. And then the next question would be, well, what does that look like?
Yeah.
And then when we know what that looks like a big smile and our shoulders back and down and open heart space, and I've just done a yoga class, we start to again feel into that experience as if it is true. And that's how we get to shift and rewire those perspectives we have about our own self and trust ourselves more.
Yeah. I love to do one too. Yeah. Similar to what you said, like, how do I want to feel when I'm getting into bed tonight? So, that thing of like, it's the end of the day. And it's like, do I want to feel drained and over it? And like, I've been overthinking all day and like, all the things, and I've eaten this and shouldn't have done that. Or how do I want to feel? I want to feel like it's been a great day. What's going to make it a great day? And so, I do a similar one of that as well.
So do you do that in the morning, that one in the morning?
Yes.
That's really cool. Because then you're like future pacing your day, like with that one.
Yeah. But I think there's that feeling. Yeah. That one always just resonates with me because it is that feeling of like hopping into bed, the day is done. You're putting like the bow on the day. How do I want to feel in that moment? You don't know, like I'm quite, I am that action taker. That is in my nature to kind of go after stuff. I'm really goal driven. And so I love the thought of just not product, what do they call it? Toxic productivity, not to that extent, but I love to feel like I've achieved something. I love to feel like, and not even achieve nature. Yeah. Like it's just like that purpose. It's like, I want to feel like my day has been worthwhile. I want to feel like I'm giving and serving and that I'm feeling good and I'm giving and serving to myself as well. And so, that one resonates with me. At the end of the day, I want to feel a certain way.
Yeah, I love that. And so I guess to wrap it up, I would love to know, is there, or what is, one mindset shift you've made that completely changed your life and business?
That is a big one. Look, there's probably two. I'm going to say two. This is the first one. It's okay to change your mind. Like I said, I'm goal driven. I've always been that way. I wanted to be a teacher since I was a tiny little girl. And when I didn't, I was like, what is going to happen now? But like, I think what I've realized, and when I was teaching yoga and then added those other elements, like it's okay to change your mind. You don't have to set yourself, because I'm also a Virgo. So I'm very much love a template. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it kind of thing. And so I don't like to veer away too much, but that's been a huge one for me. I allow that intuition to really come into play. And I know it's okay to change my mind. And look, probably the other one is that I've dabbled in a little bit of relief teaching along the way. And then, just in terms of all the branches to my business, I think another one that I have allowed myself to feel really comfortable with has been a mindset shift is like, why can't I do both? And it's similar. Like, once again, it's like, I want to put myself into a little pocket and go, this is me now. Like, everything is okay. This is what I do. This is what I'm doing. I'm a yoga teacher. Oh, hang on. I'm a meditation teacher too, or I'm a coach too. Like, why can't you can do both? Like, and that's what we were saying earlier. It's like, bring all the elements in. Like, you can flow between, have some fluidity. And that's my biggest challenge, is being less rigid and actually flowing, finding that feminine side to me, because I can be very, masculine energy. I love that masculine energy lists and plans and stuff. Letting that feminine energy flow through me and my business and allowing all of it to be there. And a coach has told me that, when she first told me, I was like, oh my God, really? I can have both? Like, I don't have to decide. Like, so they're similar. Those two mindset shifts are similar, but I use them both on myself on a daily basis.
No, I love that so much. And it is so, so freeing. I've been through those mindset shifts myself, and I can vouch for those being some of the biggest pivotal mindset shifts that even I've gone through. Even like recently, so the Christmas that had just gone, a place where I used to work, a lifestyle retreat, I was the nurse there. And until I just sort of dropped those shifts and went full time into my business. And they needed someone to do the nurse practitioner shift, which is also a cross between a naturopath, Ayurvedic practitioner shift. So I was like, why not? I can have fun with this. Like, why not? So I went and did it. And I was like, I did it to also help the business and just to go and do something different and go and do something outside of my business, because I was just showing up as the worker. And I really enjoyed myself. And I spoke to so many different people, and I did some wound dressings and blood pressures and blood sugars and all these things that, had been part of what I did for so long. And it was just nice and refreshing, really, just to do that, because it's like, well, why can't I? I can't, you know? Yeah,
And I think I have a similar thing too at the local school. For 5 years now, I've run their pre-prep program, which only comes in the very end of the year, term 4. It runs for about 6 weeks. It's twice a week, like just 2 mornings a week. And every year I say yes. And I always say to my husband, why do we keep saying yes? But I think it's the same thing. I think I just love that moment of just stepping back into schools. I don't do a lot of relief anymore, stepping back into schools. I get to meet so many people. I meet their parents. A lot of parents have a lot of anxiety about their children starting school. So I get to talk to those parents and, offer my own wisdom in those areas. And yeah, I just really enjoy it. I really enjoy sort of that being on the ground. And I think, and I've also learned that abundance comes from, having different that you can draw from, I guess. So like different streams of income has been a mindset shift for me too. I don't have to do one thing and think everything's going to come from there. I can build abundance from many different ways. And that's been part of, that's been part of why I've said yes to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. It's just been so like raw, so real. And I love how I love it when coaches, practitioners can come in and really speak from their personal experience and don't always have to act like they've got it all together and like this is what they coach on. I love how you've really been able to share your story and your evolution through self-doubt as well. And I think that what makes you a brilliant coach is because you can apply the knowledge you've learned in your personal journey and empathize with how your clients moving through theirs. So where can our listeners get hold of you, follow you, get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. That's lovely. And that's been part of the journey, the self-doubt of like, what do I have to offer? But we all have so much. We all have so much that we can give based on what we've come from. So in all the usual places, Instagram, Nikki Morrison, Facebook, Nikki Morrison. I'm on LinkedIn as well, but otherwise my website is just nikkimorrison.com.au and I've got, a few of my different things on there. So yeah, they can reach out in any of those ways.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our listeners. If this episode did resonate with you and you're ready to shift your mindset, your energy, your confidence, I'd love to invite you to my free Intro to Ayurveda for Health and Wellness Professionals Masterclass. So you can find that link in the show notes, or you can DM me on Instagram at Harmony Inspired Ayurveda and I'll send you that link. And if you really loved this conversation like we did, please subscribe, leave a 5-star review and share it with someone who needs this message today. And I'm sure that you can think of someone who goes through self-doubt because like we said, everyone encounters self-doubt. And it truly does. It helps more women access these tools and step into their highest potential. So by sharing this, you are also supporting and helping other women. So until next time, trust yourself, take action and evolve into higher self.